Yo guys, it's your boy Dylan, and today we're going to be predicting week 13 of the 2024-25 NFL season. Now, before we get started, there are no teams that are on bye, as this is the second week, in between all these bye weeks, that there will be no one on bye, as all teams will play for Thanksgiving weekend. And also, I'll do three teams that are going upwards, while three teams are basically their season could be in jeopardy. So starting off with the Bears versus Lions. The Lions, they do not have one of the best luck for Thanksgiving games, as they will be the first game of the day for Thanksgiving. As to where the Bears, they're on their own decline. So I can't help you there, Bears. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions to win a Thanksgiving game. I mean, they've won Thanksgiving games before, but they have a history of losing Thanksgiving games as of recent. But I think the Lions are going to take one here on Thanksgiving afternoon. And then the second game for Thanksgiving we have is Giants and the team that somehow won last week, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, for those that don't know, the Cowboys, they were initially on the decline. I almost predicted their decline to 3-8, but they were able to somehow pull off a win over the Commanders, and with that, they were able to take the dub. As to where the Giants, they're just on a rapid decline. I don't know what else to say for the Giants. I have the Cowboys winning this one. Maybe the Cowboys starting up a little bit of something here. Maybe the Cowboys coming back and be a 5-7 team. Moving on to the Thursday night game, we have the Dolphins and Packers. The Dolphins, they're trying to come back in the season. They're 5-6, so they're trying to start a comeback. As to the Packers, they have 8 wins, so they're 8-3. The bad news is they're a third place team. I mean, they're still in a good contention for playoffs. So I'm saying the Packers are going to take a win here, and that will make the Dolphins lose a game and probably snap the 3-game winning streak that the Dolphins were on. Moving on to the Raiders and Chiefs. The Raiders and Chiefs, both. I mean, when it comes to technically holidays. By the way, the Raiders and Chiefs game is actually a Black Friday game, so there will be a Friday game. That's actually going to be an afternoon game at Arrowhead. The Raiders, I mean, they almost beat the Chiefs last time, but the Chiefs, they found a way to get away with a win there. But this is the first time that the Chiefs are playing on Black Friday too, probably for the Raiders as well. And I'm going to have the Chiefs winning this game, and not to spoil anything, if the Chiefs win this game, which that's what I have them winning, and the Dolphins losing, if that goes to plan, the Chiefs can be the first team to clinch a playoff spot in November too. I mean, not in November history, but, just in general for this season. If the Chiefs win this game, and since I have the Dolphins losing the other game, that means the Chiefs can actually clinch the playoffs. So they can be the first team to clinch. Moving on to the Sunday slate of games, we have the Texans and Jaguars. The Jaguars, they are one of the first teams that are coming off of the bye after last week's bye week. But the Texans, things have not been bright in the last few weeks. Although they're 7-5, things have not been bright. I'm saying the Texans are going to get on track with the win against the Jaguars. The Jaguars are going to have their 10th loss, maybe even eliminating them. I don't know. But the Texans will take home the victory over the Jaguars. Moving on to the Colts and Patriots. The Colts, they're another team that's still in contention for the playoffs. As for the Patriots. The Patriots, well, they're out of it, basically. But I do have the Colts, pushing the Patriots even further away from the playoff race. Maybe even eliminating them as well. But, no one's going to get eliminated this week. I mean, someone could get. But I have the Colts winning. Moving on to the Chargers versus Falcons. The Falcons, they're one of the other teams that are coming off of bye. As for the Chargers, they unfortunately lost to what is known as the Harbaugh. What I mean by that is Jim Harbaugh, their new coach, losing to his brother, John Harbaugh. But, it happens. Sometimes you lose to John. They've lost 3 times, but this ain't the Harbaugh anymore. But I do have the Chargers getting a rebound win over the Falcons. Moving on to the Seahawks versus Jets. The Jets, they're another team that, they're coming off of bye, and their season has definitely not gone to plan. As to the Seahawks, they're still in contention. I think it's going to come down. I think most likely scenario, in my opinion, if you talk about the NFC West, it's probably going to come down between the Cardinals and the Seahawks for that number one, for that division title. But I think the Seahawks are going to take home the victory over the Jets. Moving on to the Titans and Commanders. Commanders need to get back on track here. The Commanders, they were 7-2. At one point, they were 7-2. They were like one of the best teams in the league. But they have just declined to and only they've lost 3 straight games since, and they're 7-5 now, unfortunately. But hopefully against a lopsided Titans team, they can grab a rebound, and hopefully the Commanders can get back on track and stay alive in the playoff race. Moving on to Steelers and Bengals. Unfortunately, the Steelers had a chance to beat their division rival, the Browns, which both the Bengals and Browns, they are not good this year. But unfortunately, they lost. And that, it sucks. You will have those trap games. And for all I know, this could be another trap game right here. Bengals. We'll see what Joe Burrow has in store. For all I know, if the Bengals can win out, they can actually go 10-7. But I do have the Steelers getting a rebound win over the Bengals to fully clinch a winning season for the Steelers. Moving on to the Cardinals and Vikings. Both teams are doing really good right now. The Vikings, they are second place in the NFC North. They do have that winning season in hand. I do think the Vikings are going to beat the Cardinals, and maybe the Cardinals could start to slump, basically guaranteeing the Cardinals' division rival, the Seahawks, a guaranteed first place lead through week 13. Moving on to the Rams and Saints. The Saints, they are, again, another team that is coming off of bye. But the Saints, I believe if I'm right here. But the Saints, though, they've been up. I mean, ever since that 7-game losing streak, they have won back-to-back games since. So, I mean, to be fair, the NFC South is a mediocre division. So, for all I know, their season's not really cooked yet. For all I know, they could go on a big winning streak. And a couple of the teams like the Buccaneers and the Falcons, they could go on losing streaks and they could get right back on top of the division. Maybe. But I have the Saints losing to the Rams. Moving on to the Buccaneers and Panthers. Panthers, I'm going to have to go with the Buccaneers with this one. The Buccaneers, they might have been tripped up with like a 3-4 game losing streak, but they did get onto a win since. And you almost took down the Chiefs, but I do have them taking home against the Bucs, so we'll see what happens here. All right, Eagles and Ravens, the battle of the birds. Both bird teams are rolling. One's like 8-4, I believe, and one's 8-4, and the other's like 8-3, and 8-3 or 9-3. But anyway, shape or form, both teams are just on a roll this year. But I think this is probably going to be the matchup of the week. But if I have to pick one team, I'm going to have to go with the Eagles. I think the Eagles are the better team. I think they're playing really good football right now. And I'll explain more about their winning streak since I got the Eagles winning. Moving on to some Sunday Night Football, we have the 49ers and Bills. The 49ers back and forth season continues with the loss. As for the Bills, another team that is coming off of bye. And the Bills coming off a bye after beating the Chiefs 2 weeks ago. And I'm saying they're going to continue to roll with the win. Now, just like with the Chiefs, here's a bigger deal here. If the Bills win, but the Dolphins lose, this is the only scenario that this can happen. If the Bills win and Dolphins lose, the Bills can clinch the AFC East. They can clinch the AFC East title and the postseason as well. So we could see 2 teams clinch this week. Just wanted to point that out right now. And the last team we have for the last 2 teams, and this is for Monday Night Football, we have the Browns versus the Broncos. The Broncos, they have, ever since, they got tripped up with the loss, they have won 2 straight games since, and now they're 7-5 and a decent spot in the playoff race. As to the Browns were able to pull off an upset over the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think the Broncos, might have a chance here in week 13. I'm going to go with the Broncos, and they're going to match their win total from last year this week, and the Broncos could be one step closer to the playoffs. I'm actually surprised at what the Broncos are actually doing here. And I'm actually gonna, and not to spoil anything, but we're now gonna go on to 3 teams that are improving and 3 teams that are declining. Actually, today, I'm actually going to flip back and forth between the improving teams and the declining teams. Starting up with the improving teams. Improving teams, I have the Ravens. The Ravens, what more could I say about the Ravens? The Ravens, John Harbaugh continuing his undefeated streak against his brother Jim Harbaugh. So, 3-0 against his brother or whatever, but still, Jim Harbaugh, congrats to beating your brother, John Harbaugh. Congrats on beating Jim. And the Ravens, they're not, I think it's going to be a close race between the Steelers and the Ravens for that division title. I would not be surprised if the Ravens get that division title. They have the talent, but I would not be surprised if they got that division title. I think they're not out of the woods yet. We'll see what happens. But for my 3 team, for the declining team, I have the Patriots. And Patriots are, honestly, if I really wanted to, I could even pick a couple teams that should be number 3. Or maybe even, they could be the number 4 because they've clinched a losing season. And number 3 could be the Raiders because the Raiders, they've also clinched a losing season. I wanted to see better out of the Raiders, but instead, that has just not been the case, unfortunately. So, that sucks if you're Raiders fans. I was expecting a lot better. Moving on to the Broncos. The Broncos, like I keep saying, the Broncos, they're, last year, they were kind of still in the race, but they started falling apart after Russell Wilson was benched for like 2 games. But they don't have to worry about Russell Wilson. They have Bo Nix with them, and Bo Nix is actually performing really well with the Broncos, and that's how the Broncos are 7-5 today. If they can get 2 more wins, they can get a winning season. They have enough. If they can play their cards right, they can have a 9-8 season, maybe even 10-7. Who knows? And even a wild card spot. I would like to see the Broncos return to the playoffs. They have one of the longest droughts in the NFL right now. I said one of the longest droughts in terms of not making it into the playoffs. Ever since they won Super Bowl 50, they have not made the playoffs since. So, hey, maybe they can make a playoff appearance for the first time since, winning Super Bowl 50. So, we'll see what happens there from the Broncos. For my number 2 team, although they didn't play last week, I have the Falcons. And the reason why I'm saying this right now is if the Buccaneers, they did go on a win here. They got a win. If they can start winning games, and since the Falcons have been losing games, getting onto the bye, they lost back-to-back games. If the Falcons start losing more games, but the Buccaneers somehow start winning games again, since again, like I said, that division's mediocre, the NFC South is mediocre. The Falcons, they could lose that number 1 spot for the division. So that's something that the Falcons are going to need to start getting on that winning side again before they lose that division title. But what I'm going to get out of the way is the number 1 for declining, for the Giants. Unfortunately, they let Daniel Jones go, and things just look even worse without him. They at worst, they're probably going to be like a 3-14 team. I'm going to be shocked if they even be like 5 wins now. The Giants are literally like the worst team in the NFL. There's a couple teams that are somehow like 2-9 or 3-9. Like the Patriots, they're 3. I believe they're 3-9. Yeah, they're 3-9. The Jaguars, 2-9. The Raiders, 2-9. And the Giants, they're also 2-9. So there's still a couple teams that have yet to get out of that 2-win column. But that's how the NFL works, I guess. But my number 1 for improving teams or improved teams is going to be the Eagles. The Eagles, they are just rolling. They are on a 7-game winning streak. They went from just 2 wins, 2-2, things still trying to figure out what was going wrong, to another winning season out of the Eagles. The Eagles, they've been rolling ever since that week 4 loss. They've just been rolling. They've been steamrolling, and they look like their former selves again. or well, former selves, when I mean like when they were literally winning games back in 2022, 23, and the majority of the 2020, or I could kind of say the first half of the 2023-24 season, when they were actually winning games, like they were looking like an NFC threat. So we'll see how that goes. But that'll do it for today's video. If you guys want to see more content like this, then please smash the subscribe button and smash the like button. Comment if you want to see something else. And until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.